we're here this evening with Joey Rocha. That's how you say it, isn't it? Joey Rocha.
Yeah, Rocha.
And Amy, who's hot off the sand of a holiday.
Yay, Amy.
Hello. Hi, Joey. Hi, Karen.
Hello, my darling. First of all, Joey, how's your little pickle, your little girl? I see she's in most of your videos.
She's wonderful. She's my pride and joy. She's 4 years old. She's vaccine free and healthy as can be, born at home. Thank God for the truth community has educated me on all the stuff that I never knew. I would have vaccinated my daughter thinking I was doing the right thing. I would have given her the flu shot thinking I was doing the right thing. So luckily my daughter is healthy and beautiful, and she's my reason for promoting truth tirelessly.
Oh.
Yeah, she's a right little pickle, she is.
She sure is. She's beautiful.
She is. She's absolutely gorgeous, Joey.
Thank you.
Yes.
She needs a little tutu skirt on, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does.
Anyway, obviously we're talking today because you're talking out. We have to be careful, Joey, because you know what YouTube's like. I'm on a couple of strikes as it is. I've got a couple of strikes. They don't care. They've taken off information and given me a strike for it, but I wasn't doing what they said I was doing. So we have to be a little bit careful. But Joey, I just want to explain as you've come on. Amy understands because obviously it's on this channel. I realised that when I'll explain my little bit and then you talk, Joey. When we went over to America, the prairies in the 1800s, it seemed that all these buildings were there, and then I just started listening to, instead of picking up someone, say, who's talking about history, who's big, I've picked up on some of the smaller stories, just people talking. And basically, we were quarantined when we went to America, and then they took our children, and that became the orphan trains. So
Wow.
They were doing that to us when we went to America. I also think Hitler was the same. He was taking the adults and taking the children. He's part of the system. He was destroying Tartaria buildings, taking the children. So this thing about slavery has been going on for a long time. Everybody's been doing it. We've all been slaves. We all matter, as far as I'm concerned.
Of course we all matter. I mean, that's obvious, but what they're doing in the narrative now is if you say all lives matter, then they're saying that somehow that means you're racist. And what I've been exposing for the last 2 months is the Black Lives Matters movement. The Black Lives Matters movement itself is owned and operated by the LBGT community, Antifa, and funded by George Soros. All we're seeing, obviously, in all these supposed rallies, which are really riots, are burning, looting, and murdering. People are dying. They're being killed and murdered, burnt on, set on fire. Hate is being created from this. And before I get into proving that the Black Lives Matters movement is pure evil, which I'm going to do, first of all, we have to debunk their two claims, their claim of systemic racism and their narrative of slavery. So that's what I have to debunk first. And the reason why is because if I just say that the Black Lives Matters movement is pure evil and I get into Antifa, LBGT, and George Soros funded, people can still say, yeah, but you know what, at least they're fighting for a worthy cause. No, they're not. And that's why I have to debunk systemic racism and slavery first. So I'll start off with systemic racism, if that's okay.
Sure, just Amy, if you want to ask any questions, then Amy will unmute herself and ask questions. But okay, Amy?
Sure,
yeah, feel free,
yes.
Amy. And are we on YouTube, Karen?
This is going on YouTube, yeah.
Okay, but it's
no,
not
it's
right
not
now,
right now, but it'll be a premiere.
Sounds great. Okay, so first let's get into systemic racism. That's one of the claims. I go to all the Black Lives Matters protests. They're really riots, but I go to all of them and I get greeted with anger, emotion, and all this different stuff. But I debate these people, and I'm changing the hearts and minds of people at these protests and riots using stats and figures and analyses. And here, let me just do it for your audience as well, Karen. So the two claims of the Black Lives Matters protesters that are angering them, that they're fighting for, is number one, systemic racism. Well, let's debunk systemic racism. Systemic racism is a new word that they're throwing out. They're saying that basically, just cut to the short of it, that Black people are being suppressed in America by white people, and that white people are the richest, wealthiest people in America, and therefore somehow they're suppressing Black people, basically to cut it into short. Now, let's just analyze that claim, because you see the way that Antifa is working is that they use emotions instead of logic and reasoning and statistics to capture the minds of their protesters. So first, let's get to their claims. Is there systemic racism in America? Absolutely not, and here's why. The richest Black people on earth, all continents of earth, they live in America. We have Oprah Winfrey, Kanye West, Floyd Mayweather, the quarterback that just got a $500 million a year contract, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And the other claim that this, so you know what I mean? Like, how is there systemic racism when the richest Black people on earth live in America? Well, that's just one part of it. Another big part of it is they claim that supposedly white Americans are the richest, wealthiest people in America, and therefore they're suppressing Black people. But that claim is also not true. The richest, wealthiest people in America on average are Asians and Indians from India. Are Asians and Indians from India suppressing Black people then? Is that going to be their next claim? What is their reason?
No, we have noticed that they like to use all these titles and the press and everything like that. And this is just one of their games for us.
Yeah, well, what it is it's a tactic to pit races against each other, because the New World Order agenda knows that once we unite, we win the fight, and they can't have that. So they continue to keep on trying very successfully separating us with any division that they possibly can. A lot of people ask me, they go, well, Joey, okay, great. I hear what you're saying about white people aren't the richest in America, and that Black people are the richest people in the whole world. The Black people that live in America are the richest people in the whole world. But what about the imprisonment of Black people? There's only 12% of the American public are Black, yet the prison systems are full of like almost 50% Black people. Telling me that's not systemic?
Can I just say one thing, Joey? When we got into, me and Amy will stick up for me on this one. We got into the Watts case last year.
Yes.
But at the end of it, we realised the police were involved, the judges were involved, the lawyers were involved, the media was involved, and the politics was involved. They're all involved. They're all involved. They're all playing games. They're all taking money out of the coffers to play their games. I couldn't even tell you whether there's anybody on death row anymore, because they take 500 and something thousand out of the coffers for that. You know, each death row inmate, there'll be a bounty, you know, like how much money they need to spend on him to house him. Comes to about 500,000. They're taking that out of the people's coffers. I couldn't tell you whether there is or isn't.
Right.
But I'm not sure if they're there also to frighten us.
Well, yeah, and what I tell people though is that that statistic is true. There's only 12 to 13% of the people who live in America are Black, yet 50% of the prison systems are filled with Black people. But there's a reason for that. It's not because there's systemic racism, and it's not because Black people are bad. The reason for that is 50% of the violent crimes, over 50% of the violent crimes in America are committed by Black people. And that's also not because they're bad. The reason why is because they were tricked during the Civil Rights Movement. What they did in the Civil Rights Movement in America is under the guise. Now remember, this is social engineering guised as social justice. So during the Civil Rights Movement, focusing mainly on Blacks, they gave Black women who were unmarried or who divorced their husbands, they gave them welfare type of stimuluses, food stamp type of stimuluses, which may seem really good, right? It seems good to most people, but it's actually a Trojan horse. You see, because before the Civil Rights Movement, Black families in America, on average, were all married. They were all married. And after the Civil Rights Movement, where they had the welfare type of acts, now over 70%, I think it's 72, 73%, of Black families in America are raised by single moms. Why that's important is because all studies show that if you have a two-parent household, a mom and a dad, that's the deal breaker. That's the difference maker. And what the government has done sneakily is they've incentivized people to no longer be married, because you no longer need the husband in the house to provide for you, because the government does provide for you. Also, I just want to say that I go on Black conservative talk shows. I've been doing this for the last 2 months. The majority of people who speak out about the Black Lives Matter movement as being pure evil are Black people. Just like a lot of people who speak out against the Ku Klux Klan are white people. But the problem is when black people speak out about the Black Lives Matters movement, the same way I am, using the same statistics I do, they get called sellouts, Uncle Toms, coons, et cetera, et cetera. They don't even realize that what they're fighting against is a lie, and it's actually creating hatred instead of ending hatred, because there is not systemic racism going on anyways. Another claim they make is that the police in America—
using that title, yeah? They're just using that title to
yeah, that's what they do. They
people.
trick people. They call it, just like the name, Black Lives Matters. Well, do Black Lives Matters? Of course they matter. So do all other lives, just like you said earlier. But if you say I'm against Black Lives Matters, it implies that you're racist or something like that, right? Well, no, not at all. Because remember, grape soda doesn't have grapes in it. That's just the name of it. Black Lives Matters is just the name of an organization owned and operated and ran by LBGT, Antifa, and funded by George Soros. So
no, they probably got the lackeys out getting everybody in, haven't they? Because those people then believe in it. Because I was in Hyde Park a few weeks ago. This girl came around with a microphone for Black Lives Matters as they were marching up and down the road, and they were just saying, whatever you're moaning about, just join the rally, just join us, just join. And that's all they were doing. But they were a bunch of black people doing that. So they don't know. They think, I don't know what they think, but they think it's different to what's actually happening.
Yeah, well, of course, they're being sold a different narrative by the media. You see, whenever a country goes to war, and that's what we're in right now, people just don't realize that. This is the beginning of a war that they're trying to create. But here's the history of war. Before America goes into war, the media is part of the military. So what they do is they do propaganda in media first. That's the beginning of the stages of war. That's why we have all these different false flags.
Listen, for Trump to be president, I'm sorry, I think he needs to sort the media out. You've got this law which says that they can lie to us, and they've been doing it before they even got the law to do it. You know, so basically when you watch the television, you watch all your, you can get your little magazine out and you go, oh, there's the news, there's a documentary, there's this. But in it, they're also the same thing. The news is just an absolute nightmare because it's just all fake. And they set it all up. They set it all up. I mean, me and Amy have broken down a couple of videos before where this reporter, she was complaining about one thing, and at the end I was so confused. Amanda, what was her name, Amy? That reporter?
Oh, gosh, I can't think of her name offhand, but it was the one that was reporting in the Middle East.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, I can't think of her name either.
We made a video about
hair.
it.
Yes.
She starts off by saying, no, and then she ends up blaming the rest of the Middle East. So you just don't know what they're doing, and people don't even know what they're listening to. So you start off at A, and then you
the Middle East,
to N.
You know, when America got into war with the Middle East, it's because the media did a propaganda campaign. The 9/11 controlled demolition that they claimed had Middle Eastern people in it with box cutters and a fireproof passport is what brought America into war, and now we know it to be a lie. Same thing with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Like I put a video out the other day, whereas in this country they're moaning, they're saying, we don't think Trump's going to get in. We don't. His rating is so bad at the moment. His rating means he's going to fail. Why are we watching that? We don't need to see that. You need to see it. The Americans need to see it. We don't. So they just fill us with propaganda.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of the other claims that they get into with the Black Lives Matters movement, and now this is the reason why they're supposedly upset and furious and burning, looting, and murdering, because of these claims that I'm debunking here. So it's like this. I always say it's like this. If you're going to fight for green elves, you better prove that green elves exist. If you're going to fight for systemic racism, you better prove that systemic racism exists. Another claim that they make after the George Floyd incident, which was a crisis actor incident, both George Floyd and the police officer involved was a staged video, just like the moon landing.
By the way, on that one, Joey, because you know what they're like. But yeah, carry on.
Just like the moon landing was a staged event, it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds is the amount of time that the crisis actor police officer held his knee on George Floyd's neck. Now, remember, this is a staged event. Nobody got hurt during this because it wasn't real. It's been edited, and there's a lot of proof, Russian video on it. And so 8 minutes and 46 seconds is the amount of time he held his knee down on on George Floyd, the other crisis actor. Now, think about it. Since this is all planned out ahead of time, why 8 minutes and 46 seconds? That's the exact same time, coincidentally, 8:46 a.m. that the first plane hit the Twin Tower during the 9/11 fake staged event.
Yeah, everything is to do with everything's to do with, it's really bad how everything falls into numbers and the whole
And
thing.
George
I agree.
Floyd and the police officer were both porno actors. They also both worked with each other for several years at the same club. And besides that, it's their crisis actors staged event. And what got this whole momentum for the whole world to be in the Black Lives Matters movement is the staged crisis hoaxed event of George Floyd and the police officer, the other crisis actor. So what got us into this fake movement, just like 9/11, the fake movement too, what started us off is a hoax. So the whole foundation of what started the Black Lives Matters movement is a lie. In America, there's also news reports about a month ago that 2 black men were hung from trees by a noose in California. But after
Can we prove any of this though, Joey? Can we prove any of it? Because
well, no, that's what
it
I'm
just
saying.
seems that
The news actually reported it as true, and then 3 weeks later they retracted it and said, oh, FBI investigation proved that it was just fake news. There was no video of it, there was no photos of it, there was no obituary and no family member. So it was 100% fake news. But here's how it works though, you guys. So even though they came out later and retracted it and said it was fake news, the way that Antifa works is they get your emotions involved. You saw that, and when you first saw it, you know, the American public, the sheep, they went, oh my goodness. But then later on they say it was a lie. It doesn't, they don't recognize it. Their emotions are already involved. Just like the black NASCAR driver that said that there was a noose hanging from his garage. Everybody was thinking, wow, that's white supremacy. They're showing this black NASCAR driver that they're going to hang him. Well, there was an FBI investigation into that, and it turns out there was no noose in his garage. What he was claiming was a noose. You know, in the garages when you have that thing that pulls down the garage, that's what he was trying to claim was a noose. So they're giving us and feeding us fake news, and that's part of the reason why not only is what they're feeding the protesters lies to get them angry, but it's giving them a fake narrative that's causing hate in their heart, and it's also causing hate throughout the country and throughout the world.
I don't think they care as long as we're confused.
But they
As long
don't
as
care.
we're totally confused or somebody's joined some party or something, they don't care.
No.
I'll tell you what, when you wake up and realise what we're living in, it's quite horrible, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, well, this is 2020 is the paradigm change.
It's like torture. It's torture what they're doing to us. Even
Look at
wearing
the coronavirus
masks.
hoax. Look at the coronavirus hoax. There's no coincidence that in 2020.
Yeah, just be a bit careful though, what you say.
Yeah, there's no coincidence that in 2020 these are the 2 hoaxes. It's not going to be anything else, folks. This is it. It's just the coronavirus and the Black Lives Matters movement. That's all they need. The coronavirus is to give a disguise and a mask and to keep everybody at home to watch the television, because people stopped watching television and they needed them to watch television again. And then the George Floyd incident is to incite an artificial fake race war.
Joey, this is a bit different, right? Because I know that you've come on to talk about this. But you know the Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't even think she's a real person.
How can we know, right?
The pictures are all wrong. She's got writing on her. It's all really weird. The whole of that is weird. Oh, Amy's back. That's good. Hey, Amy, she's back.
Hey, Amy, welcome back. And Amy, if you have anything to chime in or any questions, go ahead. I've got a whole lot more, so don't worry. I'm not even tipping the iceberg yet. But you know, the whole thing are fed misinformation.
It's not
so
right.
It's not even that they're. What's that?
Well, that Ghislaine Maxwell, that is another story that's not right. They fed us with it. 636,000 had watched this video, and she's not even. It's all just another story for us.
Right.
It's propaganda, Karen. That's what they use. The military is part of the. I mean, the government is part. The media is part of the military. It's been proven.
Yeah.
So what they do is they use propaganda first. You know, just like the Battle of Tonkin incident where they got us into the Vietnam War. You know, they use propaganda first, newspapers, radio, and television to make
we believed it. My memory is it really happened and but it didn't happen like they told us, even if it happened at all, because they don't need the wars. The wars, we can't ever go and prove it. It was on a video from the 60s. And basically, they just make all these programs for us. They make them 2 or 3 years in advance. And I think that's what they're doing with all those speeches when they come out. And that's why they've got no feelings, Boris and Trump and that, because they filmed those months ago.
Right, exactly. And, you know, the technology that they have now, we can't trust anything we see on television, because just like Richard Nixon famously said, the only thing that the American public will believe is if they see it on television first. So that's their first line of tactic. That's how they're manipulating the masses, as we all know as truthers, through TV propaganda. and
you
through
need to turn
lies.
that television off. All of it's fake.
It's all
The
fake.
sport, the news, everything. It's all fake. It's all a program for us to make us believe one way or another. And, like, that's the good thing about why we keep in touch, because I can say, obviously, to Amy or you what's going on, because you won't know what they're telling us here. And that's what they're banking on. They're banking on people in China or other countries. They can't know they don't know what's going on.
Right.
They're only being fed with what they're being fed with.
That's
Amen.
right.
And these protesters are being fed this information, so it's not even necessarily that they're bad people. They're just getting them to create
Look at it
hate
this
and
way,
do
Joey.
bad things.
Joey, look at it this way. At the moment, we've been really, really quiet for months, where we've been locked in our houses, and then basically there's something to go to.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
They've got it all ready for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't like the people being led the wrong way myself, and not being told the truth from the beginning, and everything is set up for us. So that's why
That's
we
why we
must
have to do
watch
these
the
shows, Karen.
television.
That's what we have to. It's so important because truth matters. We have to shine the light of truth. These protesters are upset for no reason because they're being lied and manipulated to. They, when I go and talk to these protesters, they say, when I give them all the stuff that I just gave you on today's show, they always say, yeah, but. And the next yeah, but they say is, yeah, but did you know that police are targeting black people? More black people are being killed by police than anybody else. They say, explain to me, Joey Rocha, how that's not systemic racism. And then my answer to that is, that's another lie. The truth is, last year in America, there was over 1,000 people killed by the police. The majority of those people killed were white people, then Mexican people, and then black people. So it's another lie. But just like how Bill Gates has a book called How to Lie Using Statistics, the same thing. They're manipulating these people. They're giving them fake news, and the people repeat it as though it's the truth. Like, stars
It's
are
only
light
the
years
people
away.
that get harmed. Don't forget about Bill Gates and Trump and all that. Forget about all those people. It's the people that get harmed in all this.
Well, of course. And they're
And they
feeding them these
want us
lies.
to hate each other. They want us to hate each other. But if everybody realised that we've all been slaves one way or another, and that's why in our bloodline, like you said, you were half Mexican, Amy's got Italian, I've got French, German, and Jewish. We've all been moved around and moved around and moved around over the last few centuries. We've all been slaves.
Yeah. And just speaking for America, if you think about it, how old America is, it's only 3 lifetimes old. You take 3 84-year-olds, put them back to back, and that's how old America is. I mean, it's really, really young.
Well, Joey, that's what history says right now. Because
Right,
everyone
exactly,
wrote the
Karen.
history, and we don't know what the history
We
was
don't.
before.
You're right. We can't trust anything past even maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. Maybe you can stretch it a few decades further than that. Only when and it has to be from a reliable source. All we can go with is what we have in the now. But
Because I've got a big problem with is that Spanish flu. About January, Spanish flu hit my inbox in YouTube, right? But whenever you look at the history and anybody's talking about that time, they talk about the suffragettes. They never talk about Spanish flu, which would have just happened a year or so before. So they stuck Spanish flu in.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
The next thing to get into inevitably, because trust me, I could debunk systemic racism all day long. People throw out redlining and all this different stuff. It turns out the opposite is true of everything that they say. And as I already mentioned before, the richest black people on earth live in America. I just got off of a show with a guy from Nigeria. I did an international show with him on the Black Lives Matters movement. Now, as a reminder, the majority of black people do not like the Black Lives Matters movement. They say the same thing as me. That's why most of these protests don't have black people, or they only have a few black people, and it's a lot of white people who are, I'll get into later why they're doing it, because they're apologists. They believe what the media is telling them, representing the black people. And the black people, just like white people hate the KKK, black people hate the Black Lives Matters movement. But the next narrative is slavery. According to what most people believe, especially in America, Karen and Amy, is that through Spike Lee movies and through liberal leftist history teachers, is that white Americans went to Africa, they stole Africans, they captured them, and they brought them back as slaves. Here's the true history. The truth is actually the opposite. And I'll give you an example of why it's so important in a minute too. But the truth is that it was actually black Africans from Africa, black people from Africa, not all of them, but some of them, They were the ones capturing their own people, enslaving their own people, and selling them for a profit all around the world since the 6th century. America received approximately 3% of the total amount of slaves distributed all around the world later on, way later on, come the 17th, 16th, 17th century. And right away after America, the UK, and France received slaves, they immediately abolished them. But not only did they abolish them, they fought against their fellow white brothers and sisters.
I agree with you, Joe. I agree with you, because what they seem to have done is they've stuck 1700s with the 1800s, so that when you actually go and look it up, basically everybody that came to America was a slave, right? And the word that they used was what they call black people. We all got called the same name, begins with N, right? We were all called that. But they weren't slaves. Like, they were given land, they had to work for the you know, for the cotton people and all those things, but they were given land,
tobacco,
they were given the crop, they had lives, they did everything. The only thing they weren't allowed to do was say go to the balls and stuff like that with the gentry people. So they were sort of slaves, but they weren't slaves like they were telling us they were slaves. They had normal lives, they had their own homes, they had their own little farms.
Not only that, but besides that being true, what you're saying, the narrative is the important part, because you see what causes a lot of the friction and the racial tensions is that white people and black people believe the story that white people went to Africa and stole Africans.
I don't know how that happened, because there was a trading company. I forget what it was called. Amy probably remembers.
Yeah, the Arab slave trade and many more that were involved.
It was the one where England and America were trading, and they had to. What was that one called, Amy?
Oh, the Barbary pirates or whatever.
No. You know, like there was a trading organization. Remember, we looked it up and we had all the.
Oh, the East India.
Yeah, East India were taking the slaves.
Yes. Yes.
But I didn't understand that. How come we're going to Africa to get the slaves, and at the same time the Africans are selling the slaves? It doesn't add up.
Well, because that didn't happen. The truth, see, that's why they tell that narrative and that story and that lie. Because in reality, let me just give everybody something to picture in your head. Imagine if Karen Pettit was her family, your family, Karen, beat you and held you in captivity and sold you across the sea for money. And then the people that you were sold to had you work, and that's what their incentive was, that they were going to buy you your cheaper than regular labor. But that family that bought you from your own family that was oppressing you and sold you, they freed you and let you be a free person. If you knew the true history, would you be mad at the people who freed you, that your parents sold you to, or would you be mad at your parents? Of course, you wouldn't be mad at the people who freed you. And that's the thing that's stopping racial unity and causing racial division, is that black people, a lot of them do know, but a lot of them don't know that actually it was their own people selling them. Now, there's slaves all over the world, but we're just focusing on the black slaves because that's what we're presently on, is the Black Lives Matters movement. So the reality is that black people from Africa were selling their own people, capturing their own people and selling them all over the world. And eventually, once they hit America, the UK, and France, America, UK, and France are the good guys. They're the ones that actually abolished slavery, and all the other states followed suit, or all the other places on earth started following suit afterwards. And in today, in Africa, there still is slavery.
On that bit, Joey, I know what you're saying on that, but when we went to America in the 1800s, we were put in quarantine, and they took our children, and they became the orphan children in the 1800s. So Americans were doing it. I don't think we were the goodies. But
no, what I'm talking about is the people. I'm talking about slavery. So the Americans that had slaves, and back in those times, the Americans that had slaves, that wasn't right for them to have slaves, but they thought it wasn't right too, so they ended it. They abolished it. They fought against their own fellow countrymen to abolish it, their own brothers and sisters, and there was a civil war, and they killed and fought for the freemen of these slaves, and the slaves eventually became free, and now the richest black people on earth live in America. So is there oppression? Is there racism? Racism, the word, actually wasn't even invented until the civil rights movement. I've been on several black talk show hosts that are in their 70s. I just say one
thing. I agree with you on a lot of it, but I don't think we're the heroes.
No, okay, well, maybe we're not the heroes. I'm just giving you a scenario to look in your head. I'm just making it more simplistic for people. It's like nobody's really a hero. We're all just people. But I'm just saying, if you're looking at it in the mind of the slavery, there would still be slavery today if America, the UK, and France didn't abolish it, because there's still slavery in Africa today, and there's still slavery in a few other places on Earth today. I'm talking about indentured slavery of Black people. So if you're going to look at the story, the way that they sell it to us is that white people went to to Africa, stole the people, and brought them back, when in reality it was their own people capturing them and selling them and distributing them all over the world, and it was for a profit. The Americans, the UK, and the
What you're
French are the ones
saying
that
is
were
our
abolishing.
history is the complete opposite of what we've been
Yeah,
told.
yeah, and you know, the reason why they sell that story is because actually, if you just open your eyes and look around, white people and Black people and all other races, but we're just talking about the Black Lives Matters movement, so we'll focus on that. White people and Black people get along splendidly. Look at interracial dating, relationships, marriages, friendships, co-workers, etc., etc. If we didn't receive all this fake news, George Floyd fake death, the fake hangings, the fake, even look back into the Ku Klux Klan days, I've researched a lot of that. A lot of those stories, if not all of them, but a lot of those stories are 100% fake and made up. So the things that we think actually happened didn't. But what you believe matters. So if you believe that there's people who are hateful because of the color of your skin, and that does occur. There are people who are racist, but they're racist or hateful
I know
because of what
if
they
the
see on
people,
television.
if the people, all of us together need to realise that we've all got to stick together.
Yeah,
That's
united,
right.
united we win the fight. Divided we fail. Just like in the truth community, Karen and Amy, you notice. I mean, Karen, you've been in this truth community forever, so I know that you know exactly what I'm talking about. When remember in 2016 and 17 and 18, everybody was calling everybody a shill. Everyone was fighting with everybody. Everybody was, you know, we weren't united. And now in 2019 and 2020, you're seeing a lot more unity in the community, and you're seeing the truth community grow because of that. Likewise, the general public all over the world, I'm not talking about America or UK or Africa or China, I'm talking about the whole world. Once we realize these artificial borders that were put into our mind and these artificial governments that were put into our mind are just constructs, and that
Do you
we
know
all are.
it's sad, Joey? I know it's something a bit different, and I don't want to talk about it too much because obviously it's all over my channel. But Chris Watts was a man that was supposed to have killed his wife and all this. And me and Amy broke it down. About 300 or 400 videos on my channel are to do with it. And somebody wrote me a really nice comment the other day. But it's not true. It was a story
Yeah,
for
that's
us.
what they do. That's what they
Yes.
do. But the thing is that most people aren't going to look in to see if it's true or not. And even the ones that do find out it's not true, the emotion has already stuck with them. And that's what that's what the New World Order does. They get you stuck with emotions, so you're reacting emotionally instead of logically.
That's right. I
Yeah,
agree.
you're right. Yeah, go on, Amy. What were you going to
Well,
say?
and like Joey was saying, I mean, some of my best friends are Black people, and we all get along. But then when they put out these media stories, you know, making the white people look like racist, then that causes a tension that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the media putting out, you know, the
Exactly.
false narratives, right? Like, you
I
know,
know, and do you know what? The white people. I'm not sticking up for anybody, by the way. We're in this all together. We've all been slaves. We all matter. But at the moment, the white people are the underdogs. We're the nasty, horrible ones, aren't we?
Well, Amy, let me ask
yes.
you a couple of questions. Let me ask you a couple of questions. First of all, Amy, are you racist? Amy, are you there?
Amy, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me
Amy, are
now?
you I want to ask you a couple questions, okay? Are you racist?
Yes.
Well, did you
No,
know that
not
the
at
media
all.
is promoting with in all the college campuses all over the world that if you're a white person and you say you're not racist, that's the most racist thing that you can say. What you're supposed to say is that you are racist and that you're trying to work on being anti-racist because it's brought up
Yes,
and nurtured in your DNA. How crazy is that? How crazy is that?
exactly.
So
Oh,
so that's the first
yes.
question to ask.
Can
And
I,
then here's the next thing.
can I say?
And here's the next thing.
Go on then.
Amy, do you have any Black friends? That
Yes,
doesn't mean that you're
yes,
not racist. What that means is that you have black friends because you want to gaslight and prove that you're not racist. But in reality, you're using those black friends. You see how the media works? They're literally
yes.
saying this stuff on the media, and they're literally teaching this stuff in college campuses. And you think you're paying for this education, so your teacher must be right, but they're lying. And whether they
Exactly.
know it or not,
That's
a
right.
lot of them just believe it to be true. Just like a lot of people teach the globe is the truth, even though they're not trying to be in on the lie, they just believe it. So this is what
Right.
people are promoting in the recent time of our history, in the last 2019 and 20. This is what they're promoting. So there's no way out of it. Amy, you're just a racist. That's all there is to it. And all you can
Right.
do is work on not being racist for the rest of your life, because you're just a racist. And what you told me in today's show only proves that you're more racist, because you denied being racist. And the worst thing you did is you said you had black friends, which, I mean, how to any logical thinking person could
E-
that even mean what they're saying, right?
Exactly.
It makes
That's
no sense.
right.
But it's because it's propaganda. They need an artificial race war. Like I said, black people and white people, just sticking on that topic, get along great in sports, dating, marriages,
Yes.
friendships, you name it, right? And they can't have that. They can't have that,
Exactly.
because if they have that, then they don't have control over the masses. So what
That's
they need to
right.
do is to get two powerful races to be against each other and divided instead of united, because the 3% cannot dominate us unless we're divided. If we're
E-
divided, they can work their plans out.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need to not be divided. We have to stick together.
But
That's
the
what
only
I
way
think.
to not be divided, Karen, is we have to expose this truth. I go on shows. I've been going on shows for the last 2 months, and usually I talk about all kinds of different truths. But a lot of people are too afraid to talk about this topic.
Yeah, because
When I go on
you'll
black
be
conservative
labelled
shows,
a racist.
yeah, yeah. Well, just like 9/11, when you said 9/11 was a controlled demolition, you're unpatriotic. Or when you say the Earth is flat, you're unscientific. Or and the opposite is true of everything, of course. But they always have labels. But that's it. That's all they have is a label. So if you can stand up like how you are, Karen, and having me on your show, to the name calling that they're going to give you, I mean, come on, can't we call the kettle black? Karen, are you racist against white people, Karen, for saying that the Ku Klux Klan is pure evil? Of course you're not. Likewise, you're not racist for saying that the Black Lives Matters movement is pure evil. And the word racist is a brand new word. Try to find a book that's 60 years old or older that has the term racist in it. You won't be able to find one. And the reason why is because that word wasn't invented until the civil rights movement. I learned this from some elderly black people in their 70s and 80s. I went on their show. They agree with me 100% on the Black Lives Matter movement. And they were teaching me even more. They said, did you know that racism was never even invented until the civil rights movement? A new word that they
Can I
coined,
say
just like
something,
sexist,
Joey? Joey,
misogynist.
Wow.
can
Yeah.
I say something? You know what? This whole thing about when black people were, second class citizens and had to sit in the back of the buses, that wasn't probably until the 1940s or 50s, 60s. It didn't happen until then. It wasn't happening in the 1800s. We were all slaves then. This thing where they set in that, black people have to sit at the back of the bus or can't get on, all that happened only
Yeah, that
years
was a
ago.
separate but equal act. That's what brought the civil rights movement about. And a lot of people don't realize that. Well, first, let me just say this. The NAACP was heavily involved. They're a branch of the Black Lives Matters movement. And the NAACP was heavily involved. Everyone knows about the Rosa Parks incident, right? And majority of people, until I tell them this truth, believe that it was a totally grassroots thing where there's a lady named Rosa Parks got on the bus one day and she was tired after work and she didn't want to sit in the back of the bus. And so from that stemmed the most violent civil rights
Yeah. From
protest
that
we've
is
ever
when they
seen in
did it.
history. But in
That's when they did
reality,
it. That's when they did it.
yeah, but in
Only
reality,
years ago, not 1800s,
yeah, but
20,
in
30 years
reality,
ago.
what actually happened is that it was actually a staged event,
Sorry,
just
50
like
years
all these
ago.
other things.
50 years
So
ago.
Rosa Parks wasn't the first person that the NAACP had originally offered to take the spot of intentionally sitting in the front of the bus to cause the race riots. It was another black woman, but they found out just before the staged event was supposed to happen that she was pregnant. And in those times, most black families believed in a husband and a father being together. And this woman was single, out of wedlock. So that wouldn't have worked to cause a riot. So the next choice was a woman named Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, if anybody's rewatches the Rosa Parks videos, what a coincidence that paparazzi and police and media were there waiting for her to get out of the bus. I mean, just some simple woman a black woman who said, I'm too tired and I want to sit in the front of the bus. How is it that they were all waiting there? Because it was a staged event by the NAACP, which is a branch of the Black Lives Matters. You see, they set up these things and then they cause momentum and start race.
Can I say one other thing to you, Joey? When we were looking up about the 1800s, it showed all these pictures on the internet. And what I noticed was that the black people looked happier and their suits were all pressed. Whereas when
I saw that video. I saw that video, Karen. That blew my mind. That was an epic find. And it's just like, it just goes to show, like, why are they marking them out? They don't want us to know that they were all mingling amongst each other and getting along just fine. They have to write a different narrative.
And also,
that was an epic video, by the way. Epic. I love that. Thank you for doing it.
The white people looked like they had a coat hanger stuck in their jackets and they was false. But the black people looked a lot happier and their clothes looked a lot nicer. So they're lying to us.
Yes.
They are lying to us. They're lying to us. And a lot of people think, because trust me, the majority of shows I go on are black conservative shows, and I'm learning a lot from them. And so since I go on shows, all different types of shows, I want to give the black perspective, because the media is speaking for black people, but they're lying. Black people, this is what they'll tell you from everything I've learned from them, is that not only everything I'm saying is true about the Black Lives Matters movement, systemic racism and slavery trade and all that different stuff, but it's making them out to be bad people, which is hurting them. Because when you're seeing on television as a white person, not you and Amy, but the average sheep that goes along in America, you have to be honest with yourself. If you're a white person and you see black people doing this stuff that's horrible, calling you a racist when you're not, punching you in the face, burning people on fire, killing, looting, murdering, making women bow down and kiss their feet and all this crazy stuff, it's going to create hatred in your heart against black people. And the black people of America,
you've obviously learned nothing then.
The black people of America are completely against it, but yet the media says that it's a Black Lives Matters movement for black people. However, a lot of these protests, you see a majority of white people in these protests, and black people too. But the reason why you see a lot of the white people is because they believe they're fighting for the social injustice for the black people, because the media is speaking for the black people. These people don't go on shows like how I do, so they don't know. And the shows that I go on, I'm not talking about a show with a channel that has like 500 subs or like 1,000 subs. I'm talking about shows that have over 1 million subs, 500,000 subs, a high amount of subs, and they're talking to a black audience. But guess what? It's like an echo chamber. The black people know this to be true, but when they go out in public and they say these same things, they get ridiculed, so they don't say it anymore, because they're afraid of other black people calling them Uncle Toms, coons, sellouts, and much, much more. So these echo chambers are created out of fear of not being called some type of racist name. That's why I go on these shows tirelessly, because I'm not going to bow down to the New World Order agenda, because ultimately, if they get their way with this coronavirus and the Black Lives Matters movement in 2020, come 2021, they're going to have complete control over us. They're going to be vaccinating all of us. They're going to be microchipping all of us, and we're all going to be their slaves, every single one of us. And not only that, but they're going to be molesting our children because they're sickos. So if we don't stand up to the name calling of, oh, you're a racist, or you're a misogynist, or a sexist, or whatever names they call you. They call white people KKK. They call black people Uncle Toms and sellouts. And it prevents a lot of people from speaking out about this. But if we don't, we're doomed. We're doomed.
I feel like that. I think a lot of people are feeling it's pretty dire at the moment with what they're doing. We can't even see our president or prime minister, the real ones. They're like computer programs, virtual reality. We're being run by computer programs. It's awful, and they're not the head people. So who's above them?
And that's why, Karen, that's why we can call it Illuminati or this person or that person, but we have to talk to the public like how you do. So
you notice now they're trying to make United Nations into one world order, and you're like, what? We didn't vote for this.
Yeah, crazy. It's chaos.
That's right.
What we've been put through in this last 5 months is just disgusting. Anybody who's awake will feel just as disgusted as me.
Yeah, it's all by design. They've been doing this. They've been setting this up for the last 100 years is what my research has shown me, maybe longer, but for the last 100 years, because it only takes a few generations to trick them into a new lie. Like, for example, I'm sure, Karen, that you saw, and Amy, I'm pretty sure you saw David Weiss interview
I
with
can
Ruth.
explain it to you. I can explain it to you, and I'm going to do it this way, right? There was a guy, I can't remember his name. He was called the Flat Earth Society, but not the one that we don't like today. But he had a library. Him and his wife went out speaking, and then what it was is his wife died, his library burnt down, and then he died. And by the middle 1990s, anything about flat Earth stopped on hardcore, because it was hardcore then, because we've got into computers in the last 20 years, really.
Yeah.
And more, everybody's got a computer now. But anyway, what it is they just take it out of the people's mind for 20 years. 2016 happens, everybody's waking up, and people are going, what's this thing about? It's new, flat Earth. But it wasn't.
No.
Remember David Wise interviewed someone?
Exactly.
All she knew was it was
Yes.
flat.
92-year-old Ruth said that she was still taught that the Earth is flat when she was in school. I mean, look how much of a lie it is. I mean, they are that's not even that long ago. She was being taught.
They just took it out of people's minds for 20 years, because don't forget we had 9/11 and Bin Laden and all that. Everybody then forgets. And then 20 years later, it's like it's new, but it wasn't. I'm just saying that is what happened.
You're 100% right. 100%.
So that's how they do it. But it's horrible to think that we're being so manipulated all the time. That's the bit I don't like.
Well, the only thing we can do about it, Karen and Amy, is what we're doing now. Expose the truth. Use your mouth.
I'm
use
sure,
your
like
words,
Amy and you, what it is when anything happens, the first thing we do is we go and look at it. We know it's not real. We know it's not real anyway, because the media are giving it to us. And the media, they all need to go to prison, the whole lot.
Right.
But I was just hoping, if people just do some research, they would learn it for themselves, that none of our history adds up. We're not being told the truth. We're being used. We are being used in their game.
Yes.
They're using us against each other.
Right. And if you look up about what the World Economic Forum and their goals are, they really have put it all out there on the internet. All you have to do is look, and you can see the kind of goals that they have for us. And I try to share links with people so they could read it for themselves, but nobody's really interested.
No, I was really shocked. I made a video, Amy. Amy, remember this one? It's got cognitive engineering in it. NASA are into cognitive engineering. If that's not a disgusting statement that that's what they're doing to us, it's NASA that have been doing this. NASA are the media.
Yeah.
They have been fooling us for years.
Yes.
Media trickery.
And,
it's a military tactic. It's the #1 military tactic. They trick the media, and that's their first line of defense. That's how they got us into every single war. That's how they're starting
this real. Because don't forget, they just go bomb, bomb, bomb. We go, oh, look, they've all been bombed. We don't know. They're making the news for us.
Well, look at Pearl Harbor, for example. There was no atomic bomb drop. We don't have the technology for an atomic bomb. It was just carpet bombing. And a lot of it was just staged videos too. So, it's crazy what they're able to do with this new technology called television.
Yes.
A fairly new recent technology. This new technology is the biggest war against the mind.
Old technology they're using, because again, I'll say to you, you're in all the way out in Hawaii. I'm here, and Amy's in America. We've got no time delay between us.
Right.
That's right.
We're thousands of miles away from each other. No time delay. Whatever technology they're using was obviously here before, and we've tapped into it, or we're using it, and they're trying to make it better, or whatever they're doing.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
It's all part of the same thing. It's all part of the same loop. It's all one great big loop for us. There's no beginning, there's no end, and you can't actually find the truth out. That's what I've seen. You can't find the truth.
Yeah, and then I'm not big into the Mandela effect, because I'm not there's so many things to research. It's hard to research everything, But when you look into the Mandela effect, look how they're subtly changing things that used to be in our reality. They have all kinds of technologies
I'm
we're
not
not
sure,
aware of.
Joey. I think the Mandela effect happens when you wake up. Then that causes the Mandela effect.
Could be. How can you elaborate?
Well, it's just I made a program and it was a film, a video. It's on Unscrambled. It's one of my earlier ones. But I was trying to explain that Cheryl Ladd from another dimension, she met Chris Christopherson, and it was all to do with, the Mandela effect. And I was just wondering that the Mandela effect only comes into play when you wake up. When you wake up, I mean, I do remember Mandela dying and then he became president later on. You
Yeah.
forget these things. You do
Yeah.
forget them. But it just seems that when you wake up, suddenly everything looks totally different.
Yes.
So that's where the Mandela effect comes in. It comes in
Good
only when
point.
you wake up.
Right.
If you don't wake up, you believe everything they've told you. When you wake up, you realize everything is wrong.
That
Yes.
leads you into a good question of what are dreams. That could be a whole topic by itself. What are dreams?
Mm.
I know.
Well, what we're being fed with and our subconscious running around in our heads. Joey, you talked
Yes.
about the racism. There was another part you wanted to talk about.
Well, I wanted to debunk systemic racism. I wanted to debunk the narrative of slavery, and then I wanted to get into who owns the Black Lives Matters organization. It's the LGBT community, Antifa, and sponsored by George Soros. When you look into what their agenda is, I mean, it's a play on words. Everything's a play on words, but there's a transgender agenda, and we already know this. They're taking young boys and girls, but we'll take boys for this example. They're taking young boys 4 years old, and they're identifying as a woman because they're being encouraged by their parents, and they're turning them into a female at such a young age. But in reality, what they're actually doing is castrating men. I mean, that's the real name for it. And so what they want to do is horrible stuff. See, these are sexual predators that we're dealing with at the highest level. They get off and they get kicks on doing this stuff. They want to separate the family. They want to make us all confused. And then that's how they're eventually going to run us all, because
Can I just say that there's a Russian guy, I can't remember his name either, Yuri, whatever his name is, and he supposedly came over from Russia. And what they're saying is, in Russia, this is how they dealt with them, and they did it the same to us. They just changed. They took it away from the Russians. They made us slaves to debt in our world, but it was the same program. Making you feel awful, breaking up families. There's a whole system of things that they do. Obviously, putting on weight, stuff like that. It's all part of this game that they've put us in.
I saw that interview as well. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the guy explains it perfectly, and that is what they're doing. I mean, listen to his words; they're prophetic. You see it playing out.
Yeah, it's quite incredible though. But don't you find it really incredible that without one police officer or one soldier, we all shut down for 5 months roughly? What was that? March, just April, May, June, July. 4 months we've been shut down.
Yes.
Insane. We're living in insane times, and unless there's more Karen Pettits and Amy's out there, we don't stand a chance.
And Joey,
because you're just regular people. You're just regular people who've taken as a responsibility, a rewardless responsibility.
It upsets me because basically it's bad enough as it is. My channel, even though I'm showing that things are wrong, I'm hopefully that people see us as a family. That's why they come to the channel. And at the same time, where I'm trying, keeping everybody together, they're trying to divide us.
That's right.
And the good news is that we naturally are drawn towards each other. So once we expose these lies, it took them many generations to get us to where we're at. But in a matter of a few days, when the world wakes up, and that's what's going to happen, we are going to wake the world up, because there's more truthers every single day. Brazil alone has 13 million or 14 million now, I believe, flat earthers alone. There was a recent poll taken, and 70% of the population of the world believes that 9/11 was a controlled demolition. The world is waking up. It's just, are they going to wake up fast enough, or is the New World Order agenda going to happen first? We're at the final finishing line of the race.
We are waking up. That's why it's all coming into force right now, because we're waking up.
Yeah. Look how many people woke up from the coronavirus with the germ theory. Dr. Andrew Kaufman and many other doctors and nurses that came out that proved that the germ theory was just like gravity. It's just a theory, and it's a lie and a hoax. And therefore, this whole coronavirus is a complete
I know, and the medical people are the people that should know you can't catch a virus off anybody. They should know all this, and they're indoctrinated. And they're wearing masks, which prevent you from breathing. So these people who are operating on us can't breathe properly in the first place. And it's amazing that we're allowed to live in a society like this. Because out of this they need to find something different than those masks, because people are dying.
They're dying from ventilators, and they're being labeled as coronavirus when it's not actually coronavirus. But a lot of people are dying from the ventilators.
Well, we might have the coronavirus in us, but it's just that your body detoxing itself. So if you labeled it different, then that's what it is. You're just detoxifying. It's just incredible what they've been allowed to do.
Yes.
Yeah, they manipulate the truth.
Sorry, Joey, say that again.
Just like the vaccine autism rate has skyrocketed since the mandate of vaccines. And, all of us truthers know that how did we get here since the beginning of time, whenever that was, without being vaccinated? And yet now they make us believe, at least, if you don't get vaccinated, the human population is going to die out. When in reality, that's the opposite.
I put a video up from a nurse, and she basically said that there's been no testing since the 1960s, and any vaccinations and everything they're giving you come from the 60s. And a lot of these genes which they put in these vaccinations, they mutate, so they're giving you cancer.
Yeah.
It's like, what? How? It's like we're in a big concentration camp.
And then speaking of cancer, which is terrible anyways, the cure supposedly for cancer is chemotherapy. Well, actually, if you're a cancer survivor, you're actually a chemotherapy survivor. You give a healthy person chemotherapy, their odds of dying are pretty high. Just like if you put a healthy person on a ventilator, the odds are they're going to die. And that's what they're doing with the coronavirus. They're putting them on ventilators, and that's killing them.
Joey, Amy lost her dad at Christmas from brain cancer and chemotherapy, didn't you, Amy?
Yes, it was awful, and it was. I say that he was a victim. I don't say he died of the brain cancer. I say that he died from their treatments that they gave.
Of course he did. Of course he did. I was on Patricia Steers' show about 2 years ago.
It's mustard gas. How can they be giving us mustard gas and calling it a cure?
Yeah. They killed your father, and that's the sad thing. Just like my uncle, he recently was diagnosed, a healthy man in his early 70s in Hawaii, a fisherman, very healthy. He was the kind of guy that he would challenge all the kids to arm wrestling matches and just very active. Anyways, he went for a routine checkup.
Yeah.
They said, it turns out we diagnosed you with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. You only have 6 months to live unless you try this chemotherapy. 2 months after they put him on chemotherapy, he was incapacitated, had a catheter in him, and was unconscious. 3 months after they put him on chemotherapy, we were at his funeral. Had he never went to the doctors for his screening, he would still be alive today. They're giving fake diagnoses of people that have cancer. How do they know that this cancer is not going to go away on its own? Because here's a fact. The average person has acquired cancer 7 times in their life without knowing it, and your body fought it off naturally. So if we left it alone, it probably would have cured itself anyways. Why are they doing this? Because it's all for profit, of course.
Exactly.
And population control. So your father was killed. My uncle was killed. They're murdering.
So Amy's dad, right? He didn't. They cured him of the brain cancer supposedly, but he couldn't talk anymore. His body was all twisted. He couldn't look after himself at all. It was horrible. I feel so sorry for Amy.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Yes, and he was like your uncle, Joey. He's very active. He was in his late 70s. He had more energy and everything than I do, and he was in such good shape. And when they I think when they biopsied his brain and everything, that made him a lot worse. They told us the only hope was radiation and um and chemotherapy, but they didn't keep up with the chemotherapy because but they even said it didn't even work in that kind of tumor anyway, but they still gave it to him and that caused him a lot of problems. Then they took him off of that, but they kept giving him that radiation and it just left him completely incapacitated and it destroyed his immune system and he got every infection in the book and they did not tell us when he went to the doctors, the cancer doctors, oh, you'll have a great chance of survival if you don't take this treatment. Like they told your uncle, you only have a few months to live. Well, he only
Yeah,
lived a
like they're
few months
Nostradamus or something, right?
anyway. Right. And, you know, and so he didn't live very long anyway. And the time he did have was just awful, in and out of the hospitals for these infections. And it was just awful. And I do believe that, you know, probably the, like you said, the cancer could cure itself. And I wanted to talk to the doctors after my dad went through that, after he passed away. I wanted to meet with them and say, you've got to stop encouraging people to just take this treatment because look what it does. And but they didn't want to meet with me. And then
No,
I
of
started
course not.
I
researching
just think
about
there's
the,
one other
yeah,
part as well,
every,
Amy, that you haven't said. Towards the end, the nurses were telling her, Amy, to tell her dad to let go.
Oh,
oh,
that's another thing too.
yes,
Hospice comes in. I call hospice the Grim Reaper. What they do is they talk
me
the
too.
family and the loved one who's suffering into, they don't put it this way, but into killing themselves, which is basically a morphine overdose. That way you can plan it. And
Exactly.
they say stuff like, well, you know, they're going to be in more pain anyways. And you know how expensive it's going to be to keep them on life support, blah, 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 blah. Well, if
Yeah.
you never went to the doctors in the first place, they wouldn't have even been sick. And now that they got you there and they've injured you, now the Grim Reaper steps in, which is what I call hospice. And they
Yep.
overdose people with morphine. That's what hospice does. Their job is to
Yes.
kill people. They're professional
Yes.
Grim Reapers. They overdose them with morphine. They plan it out so you know what day they're going to die. How horrible
Oh,
is that?
oh, I
I mean,
know. I
gosh. And they get us
know.
to do it.
Yes, and they told us that we were very selfish people. If
Yeah, that's how they do
you
it. I
know,
know.
yeah, tell you you're selfish and they're gonna have such a peaceful death, and it really wasn't because once they start the morphine, it start messing up my dad's breathing. You know, until they would have to give him more, and you know, eventually, like you said, they overdosed him,
Yep.
and it was awful, just awful. And but that's what they encourage now, and they won't give him any fluids or anything. And he was so
Yeah, that's crazy,
dehydrated.
isn't it?
Yes,
Yep.
and that
That's, I
created a
mean, it's
lot of the
crazy. I've seen
symptoms.
that so many times.
Oh yes, and then they told us,
Torture.
yeah, and they said, oh, going from dehydration is a very pleasant way to die. And I was just like, what? I never heard any such thing. It was a really horrible uh, thing to witness. Then I
All we
looked up,
are is victims. We're victims of this
yes,
whole system. We're
All of us.
victims. That's it.
That's why we have to stand together and unite and share the truth. And beyond sharing the truth, all these communities of truthers need to combine together like we are doing, but it needs to grow even further to where we put aside our differences. Oh, you know, you don't agree with this truth or you think this way about that truth. Who cares? The fact is, it's the governments that are lying to us and we disagree on exactly what truths are legit or
I mean,
not.
we don't like these subjects, do we?
exactly.
I mean, when we found out about Chris Watts, I was like, I hadn't realised it was that bad. But it goes on. It goes into the slavery. It goes into the politics. Everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't like seeing it, but I can't help it. I've got an eye for it. I notice things are wrong in the videos.
Right.
But we're victims.
Y-
Amy understands. Amy's been with me for the last year on this journey. She knows. I'm not
yes,
making it
that's
up. I'm telling
right.
the truth.
Yeah.
That's right.
All of us. And they have us, all of us victims, which you're absolutely right, but they have all of us victims fighting against each other. When if we stood together and united, we wouldn't have to deal with Amy's dad going to the hospital and dealing with that, or my uncle and we wouldn't have to deal with these riots that are happening with the Black Lives Matters movements, and we wouldn't have to worry about these ridiculous vaccines that they're trying to mandate with the coronavirus hoax. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
we haven't woken up the world yet. That's why we have to tirelessly continue to.
They haven't even told the truth. Amy found it by accident because somebody sent me a picture saying that someone else looked like someone else, Chris Watts' wife. And then when Amy scrolled down her Facebook, there in 2017, they were talking about coronavirus on her Facebook. So it's
Wow.
Yes.
been going on for years.
Insane.
Right.
Insanity. It's
And
what a world we
what's
live
really
in.
crazy is we've been here for as long as we've been here. Nothing has killed us before. Why would it suddenly come and take over? You know, we've been here for
I
I
don't
don't even know how long we've been here.
They're
Right.
writing a story. It's his story.
Yes.
It's his story, yes.
His story, and they're writing it.
That's right.
And as long as we keep on, you know, not us, but as long as the general public continues believing his story, then we're going to be in the predicament that we're in, but much, 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 much worse. That's why this is the paradigm shift. 2020 is the paradigm shift where either we win or we lose. There's either going to be a new beginning of beauty and paradise here on earth because the truthers win, or we're all going to be slaves and our children are going to be molested by the elite. One of the two is going to happen. And I'll die. I'll die.
I don't think people realize, like, say, we'll take 10 years ago. There I was voting, watching Prime Minister's Question Time on the BBC. When you're fed all that stuff, you believe it and you get into it. I was thinking, I want to be a counsellor. I want to help the people. But then I realised that when I look at you, the law's protecting me. And when you look at me, the law's always protecting the other person. So I couldn't help anybody. So there was no point to that. But obviously you wake up and then nothing is correct. Nothing.
That's right.
It's our true history. I mean, look at all the research you've done on mud floods in Tartaria and all the stuff that involves that. I mean, mind-blowing. We don't know our true history. And they're lying to us today. Guaranteed they were lying about our history that we were studying as third graders, fourth graders, middle school.
Can I ask you something? What do you think of Tartaria then? I mean, I'm not even sure whether Tartaria was a nice time. And I think Queen Victoria was the last Tartarian, her generation, because she's then signed over to a government. And that's govern the mind. So that happened in the 1840s, about 1837, something like that. That's if you believe the history. What's your take on Tartaria then?
100%. I just, as I said earlier, I study all kinds of things. Tartaria, the mud floods. I'm totally subscribed to that. The reason why I haven't done many videos on it is because I just don't have the time. You know, I'm promoting tirelessly flat Earth, vaccines,
and volcanoes.
Volcanoes are a hoax. I mean, there's so many things to. Did you ever hear about that, Amy?
Yes, I did. I think I watched one of your videos about it. Care.
And the reason why I don't go too much into it, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you know, it's a truth, and there's a lot of truths. I mean, basically, they lie about everything. So it's just, you know, we got to wake up the world, you know, one lie at a time. And the most important lie to me right now is the Black Lives Matters movement and the coronavirus hoax, because it's relevant in today and it's creating the most damage right in front of our eyes. We're seeing people die from ventilators, being murdered from ventilators.
Yeah, you don't want to be put on one of them. You do not want to be put on a ventilator.
No. And we see people
and they've got no resuscitate. At the moment coronavirus came in, there's no resuscitate.
It's horrible. It's murder. And then in these Black Lives Matters movement, we're seeing people, real life people being burnt to death, being murdered, being attacked violently.
Is that the media doing it again though, Joey?
They're perpetuating it, but real life people are actually doing this. In reality, these aren't staged events. In reality, because what I go off as a truther, I don't go off anything on the news. I can't verify. But if I see somebody's handheld camera and there's several other cameras that are witnessing the same thing, that I can rely on. And in these protests, whenever these violent acts happen, you see tons of cameras from all different angles and all different sources from individuals that you can go to their Facebook pages.
So what do you suggest people do then, Joey, then? So we've got to the point where you're saying, just watch what you're looking at. Everything's a lie.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest to people then? To research it themselves or?
Research it yourself. Research it yourself. The only way to know if something's true that's on video in my opinion, is if you have a regular person, not a media person, but if you have a regular person in several videos of people that everyone carries around a camera phone, and usually what happens is when these murders and these fires and these burnings and lootings happen, is a lot of people pull out their cams, they post them on Facebook and Instagram, and when you can correlate and see 5, 6, 20, 30, 40 people showing the same scene, then you can say, okay, it looks like that really happened. And I've seen that several times with the Black Lives Matters movements. That's how I do my investigation. And I see people dying, being murdered, being burnt on fire, buildings being looted. And then these videos get taken down right away, of
Something
course.
else as well. I'm sure you're into this as well, but common law is what we should be run by. We're not. We're run by corporation law. And
yeah,
that is incredible in itself, that most people don't realise. And the police are supposed to be run under common law, so they're actually promoting the wrong law to us. So the police shouldn't uphold any of the laws that are given right now, because they're corporation laws, and the police should be running under common law.
we're living in a backwards world where everything is the opposite.
Yes.
Karen and Amy, I got to get going pretty soon. I
Oh,
got to
Yeah,
go
well,
attend to my daughter.
If we finish the hangout, and then
Oh.
we'll say goodbye to each other off air. But Joey,
Yes.
I'm sure you'll be
Yeah.
back. We've had
Oh,
many
yeah.
a hangout, not on this channel, but on my Sun and Moon channel. We've had many a hangout
I miss
together
it.
in the past, haven't we?
Oh.
Yeah, we can't go live like that anymore. This is almost the same. It'll look the same as if we were live.
Yeah, and then
but
you
we'll
can
be on a
premiere it
premiere.
and get an audience there, and that's great, because then sometimes we get interrupted with comments in the chat, and so this is kind of nice in a different way, because we can just stick to what we're talking to, which is great.
Not just that, if you wanted, you can, obviously I'll give you the link to the hangout. You can be in the chat room if people have got questions.
Oh, I will. When are you going to premiere it?
Tomorrow, but it just depends, because obviously Joey's in Hawaii, and that's what time is it for you? It's midnight for me. Was it lunchtime for you?
Right now it's 1:09 in p.m. in Hawaii.
So I'll try and keep that in mind. You're 11 hours behind me. Okay.
Yeah, I'm free all day tomorrow, so show me the premiere or tag me in the premiere, and I'll be there live in the comment section answering questions. I'm sure people have plenty of questions, so I'll be there to answer any questions people have too.
Yeah, I just wish that we but that's our friendship is, we're quite a public friendship, and we talk about these things, but it's a shame we couldn't talk about the nice things and the other things that we know about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
but
yes.
to get to that point, we have to fight for our right to survive. And right now they're killing us. They're getting us to kill each other is a sad thing.
And just one more thing.
Yes.
I only realised through watching that video that you're half Mexican.
Yeah.
I thought you looked Hawaiian.
No, I just live in Hawaii.
Do people notice that you're not Hawaiian? Because you look Hawaiian to me.
You know what? The majority of people that live here, for some reason, they think I'm Hawaiian. And I usually don't correct them, not because I'm embarrassed to be Mexican or anything like that, but I usually don't correct them because it works in my benefit. Because in Hawaii, if you're considered a local, you kind of get more respect. So I just let them think what they think.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then Amy, do you want to say anything before we go?
Oh, I just really enjoyed talking with you, and thank you.
It's a
for
pleasure, Amy.
having
You have a
me.
beautiful voice. You're very educated and
Oh.
you're very brave. I'm so glad that you work together with Karen
Oh,
to fight
thank
crime.
you, Joey. Thank
We're
you.
real life heroes, all of us that are in the truth
Amy
community.
started off as a really shy person. She was quite quiet, and now she's got a big voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amy, awesome. Well, you know what? I got your back, Amy. I got your back. Karen's got your back.
Yes.
If you ever want to go live, you can always come on my channel anytime.
Oh,
thank
and
you.
if you ever want me to go live with you guys, I'll go live with you too. And if anybody ever tries to do the whole thing where they call you a shill or any of those kind of names or anything, they're gonna have to deal with Joey Rocha. I guarantee you that.
Oh,
there you go. You've got a man, good, a proper man.
Yes, yes, that's
Amen.
right.
Joey, you've got to. We're going to end this hangout in a moment, but maybe come back and talk a bit about the volcanoes. I know that's last year's news.
Oh, I would love to. It'd be an honor. It'd be an honor to talk about the volcanoes. It's one of my favorite topics, and it's so easy to prove.
Okay, we'll save that one then, and we'll do another hangout. But Joey, thank you so much for the hangout. We're saying
Thank you.
goodbye now. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Joey.
Bye,
You're
Amy. Bye, Karen. Bye,
welcome.
everybody.
Bye, Joey.
Remember,
Bye,
remember,
Karen.
the Black Lives Matters movement is pure evil. It's pure evil.
Yes.
If anybody on your Facebook page is supporting Black Lives Matters, let them know. Just like if they're supporting vaccines, let them know. Don't just let it fly because they're going to call you racist, and that's what they're going to call you at first. But debunk systemic racism, just like we did in this show. Debunk the slavery narrative, just like we did in this show, so they can see that there's no such thing as green elves, so you can't fight for green elves. There's no such thing as systemic racism, so you can't be fighting for something that's not there.
We're just being used for their games.
We're being used. That's it.
Yes.
Pawns.
The people need to stick together. That's what I say.
Amen.
That's right.
Amen.
Okay.
God bless you, Karen and
you.
Amy. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and I can't wait for the premiere.
Thank you.
Oh, bye, Charlie.